Hey, I'm Rachel,
And I'm Amanda, and this is Beyond a Ballot.
powered by DoorDash. Welcome to another edition of Beyond a Ballot, a royal edition of Beyond a Ballot today. Hi, Amanda.
Hi, Rachel. So excited for this one.
So excited. I don't know if I've ever talked about this on the pod, but I am a huge royal nerd. Like, I really love the royal family, and I lived in England for a bit. So my obsession only grew while I was over there. But we are so thrilled today to have Bonnie Brownlee, who is a royal commentator, joining us. She has an incredible insight and history with the royal family. And so King Charles, for context for our listeners, is going to be in Canada on Monday. What is he doing? He is going to be reading the throne speech in Parliament. Now, typically, the king doesn't come to Canada to read the throne speech. So this is a big and very historic event. It hasn't happened since 1977 when his mother came over to read the throne speech many years ago. So we are super excited about all things royal this week. And I want to bring in Bonnie. Hi, Bonnie. Thanks for joining us.
Hi. I'm happy to be here.
So let's dive in. How do you become a royal commentator? What's your story?
Well, earlier in my life, I worked for Prime Minister Mulroney from 1983 to 1993. I was in the PMO for 8 years. And through that period, I met the royal family. And it was an interesting time because the Princess of Wales was around, and the Duchess of York, Sarah Ferguson, and myself and Mila Mulroney. And we were women of a close age. We are a little bit older than they. And we went to our first sort of royal event in the UK, and they looked at the two of us and went, oh my God, other young women, maybe we could start to connect. And relationships began and friendships began literally just between women that were in the public eye, for instance, during that period. And I happened to be in London the year that Diana died. I had been asked by Buckingham Palace because they knew me from my work with the Mulroneys. I was Brian's executive assistant and Mila Mulroney's chief of staff.
Wow.
And they asked me if I would come and help them do some media work with the Princess of Wales and the Duke and Duchess of York. So I spent a year at Buckingham Palace. And you can see how successful I was, right?
It was a tough time.
In my communications practice. It was a difficult time, and it was the breakup of the Princess of Wales and her husband, who's now King Charles. So it was not an easy time, and it was a floundering time a little bit for people like the Duke of York who didn't know what to do with himself. So, I mean, there's a whole thing we can talk about sometime just about how children need to be mentored, even if you are a prince, right? Or you live in a small town in Canada. Parenting is extremely important.
And what was Diana like? I'm going to ask that for my own personal interest.
Strikingly tall.
Wow.
Thin, attractive, shy.
Wow.
The first time I really got to know her was at a party in the English countryside for the Duke and Duchess celebrating their 10th wedding anniversary, although they had been divorced 4 years. It's royals, what can I say? So we're there sitting outside, and the children, there's a playground, like there's horse rides and all kinds of things going on, and helicopters flew over, and Diana ducked under the picnic table.
Wow.
That's how frightened she was, and how imposed she felt upon for her own privacy in life. So, nobody can walk in those shoes. Those were pretty difficult shoes for all of them, I would add.
I'm curious, before we talk about present day, because you have such an interesting background, do you have a favorite memory from that era, from the time that you spent in the Mulroney government or the time that you spent with the royals? I'm curious about what really sticks out for you as a high profile woman during that time. I think it's so fascinating, your backstory.
I think in particular for me is how generous the Mulrooney's were, in particular
Mm.
Brian, in making sure that you knew people like they knew people. So whoever was about a king or a queen or even the odd dictator or whatever was going on in government in those days, they were extremely welcoming for all of us to be part of things and to learn from that. And so therefore became good friends with the Reagan White House, the Bush White House. I still see members of their staff to this day. We still keep in contact. Because in America it's much different. You really get to be somebody big and move on. Canada, we're still a little, resistant and shy about congratulating people for success in some of those areas. But yeah, that was, I will never forget how welcoming the royals were as well. They were very friendly and actually just loved having any kind of relationship with people from the outside.
That's interesting because that's not the sense I think that we get of the royals, right? I think our big takeaway is how closed, how isolated, how somewhat segregated. So to use that idea of openness, I think is really interesting and something that we don't hear that often.
Well, I think, Amanda, it's because they were so isolated. I was there. I was inside the palace when there were events going on in the palace or outside, and you had to be in your rooms at night in your royal apartments with the curtains closed so that no light would shine out depending on what was going on in the streets or what celebration was going on. So you were very restricted. And outside people that weren't royal were of more interest to them because they could just be themselves in a different way. And that's why Diana and Sarah would sneak out regularly in costume and disguise and go to the clubs. They'd put wigs on and, wear glasses, for a sense of freedom. And they did it all the time. And they knew the palace, especially Buckingham Palace, well enough. They knew how to get out and they knew how to get back in without getting caught. And both of them were young women. Diana was 19. Sarah was 23. Not worldly, not well educated, not well read. So there was a lot coming at them in a very short period of time.
Wow. I mean, I guess we all think now about the Harry and Meghan Markle world, that narrative of the royal story.
Right.
But one of which is kind of overshadows this transition of power that we've seen over the last couple of years since the Queen's passing, that Charles is now king. And I think a lot of Canadians, the Queen was over here many times and the Canadians really felt the Queen and we had this Queen. But I'm not, what are your thoughts on Charles in terms of his relationship with Canada and whether Canadians feel the same way towards him as they did to his mother?
Nobody's going to reach the height, probably, of Queen Elizabeth. She was quite special and, had been a wartime queen as well. So those relationships were very different and very deep. Even for somebody like my own father, who was a World War II vet, I mean, he always felt a sense of loyalty to Her Majesty. But when you look at the polls, we see them all. They're done here all the time. Should they go? Should we get rid of them? And it was 50-50 for a while, and now it's dipping a little bit. But I think there is still a sense of it is our background and it is our history. And may they have done a few things wrong? Yes, of course they did. And I think they're looking for ways to apologize. But I mean, King Charles is coming for a lot of reasons. Some are personal for himself to be seen again by Canadians. But, in terms of sovereignty, I would say Donald Trump has a lot to do with this visit. And we were all wondering for a while when Trump first started throwing tariffs at Canada, where's the Commonwealth in this defense of Canada?
Yes.
Where's the king? So everyone is trying to figure out what to do with Donald Trump, as is the monarchy. How do we handle this? How do we manage this moving forward? And also having a good relationship with Prime Minister Carney, from him being the governor of the Bank of, England, they would all know each other. They'd be part of a certain social set in the UK. And clearly there's a friendship there. The whole notion that the king would change his schedule within 4 weeks and come for
Right.
a speech from the throne. It's remarkable. It's almost unheard of. And I can only imagine what they had to do to get him here for literally, I think he's here for 30 hours. Like it's brief, but it's significant in that sense.
So what did they have to do? Like, did Mark Carney just text him and say, hey, you want to come to Canada? Like, what is the protocol there when the prime minister decides that he'd really like the king to come? How do you engage Buckingham Palace on that?
Well, he did go and see the king before he called the election. So I would say there was a conversation that took place at that time. And they decided that this was something that they, could do. And the king saw it as something that was useful to him as well, like to come and to tell Canadians, Canada is not for sale. I'm going to be part of that campaign and that parade with you and, and with your new government. So, the staff would be scratching their heads and trying to figure out, oh my God, how do we make this work? Because they have diaries. They come in big green books for every member of the royal family. And your year is laid out for you. You're going, this is where you spend Christmas. This is Easter. This is everybody's birthdays are there, their wedding anniversaries, the death of that you have to celebrate and remember. And it's very hard to start moving stuff around, especially on his schedule and with his health issues as well.
When you heard that he was going to be delivering this speech from the throne, given your background, were you surprised at that decision?
No, I actually thought it was, an issues management question that the palace would have had to have discussions about as well to start to figure out where do you play now in this role? You've done nothing, you've said nothing so far. You have a new prime minister who basically won an election on Donald Trump and tariffs to some extent. So this is now the time for you to come and say something and be part of it. And, it strengthens national identity. It helps with our own sovereignty. I mean, we struggle every day with, do we defund the CBC? It's the same type of question and issues that Canadians are, trying to come to terms with and decide what's best.
What would be the risk of this decision for Prime Minister Carney? Like, what do you see as potential backlash or concerns that Canadians might have to see this speech from the throne being delivered from the king?
There'll be a lot of people that won't like it. I mean, that's the backlash. If you're not a loyalist and you don't care about this type of thing, and there's a lot of Canada's full of new Canadians. They come with different beliefs and different backgrounds, so they may not find this a necessary thing. But right now, he is our king, and we are a constitutional monarchy, and he is part of it. So the fact that he is coming is a big deal in that sense. But will there be backlash? The king could be booed very well. We have no idea what may happen in the streets. You know how politicians hate to go to like hockey games for that reason, because you never know. It's a risk for the king as well. But he is bringing the queen. She's basically become everybody's favorite from being not everybody's favorite.
What?
So
Camilla? Yeah. People are loving Camilla?
Well, especially in the UK, in the United Kingdom.
Really?
Yeah. Because she's actually more royal sometimes than the royals are. And both the Queen and Prince Philip understood that she was good for the king. And not to take anything from the Princess of Wales, Diana.
Yes.
And if you notice, Camilla never became the Princess of Wales. She was entitled to that title, and she chose not to use it. That's why she became the Duchess of Cornwall, in respect to the late Princess of Wales, Diana.
Wow.
What do you think changed public opinion on her?
She just worked hard, and the royal correspondence in the UK, it's a big deal there to be a royal correspondent. It's a real job. It's real journalism. We still roll our eyes about it here in Canada, well, because they cover them every day, all over the United Kingdom and all over the world. And the royal cortege of journalists that traveled with them really started to respect Camilla. Her kindness, her authenticity at events. She's very funny. had great jokes, and they just sort of loved.
Wow.
He's funny, and they loved having her around. And she was good natured, and as she got to know them, she might come and have stuff like cookies or something for them. There's always a way to win over the press corps, and and they'd have dinner parties, and they would invite them to cocktails and stuff like that, and get to know them. So she worked hard. She worked hard, and the king and Prince Philip, the Queen and Prince Philip respected her immensely for her ability to, look after him, and also very good to William and Harry and the family. So, yeah, she's earned her crown, if you will.
And what role do you expect that she'll play next week?
Well, if he's in a good mood, she'll be able to enjoy it. If not, she's always the one that keeps the status quo and keeps it all moving and everybody happy and having a good time. And she is being she's being made a order in council when she's here, which would allow her to give advice to the king on Canada. So just another step in her growth as queen. I mean, he gave her the title queen as well, so she could be considered an equal. She could have been the queen consort, but he gave her queen as title. So that's the highest order of respect you can give at this point. So just like all our husbands, right?
And now a word from our title sponsor, DoorDash. Just like we go beyond a ballot, DoorDash goes beyond delivery. DoorDash is committed to helping merchants reach new customers and grow their businesses online. This week, we spoke to Shika, a founder of Sai Krishna Foods in Moncton, New Brunswick, about how DoorDash helped her establish a presence in a new community.
When we didn't have the storefront, when we were just takeaway, there was no sitting, and we were new in the market, nobody knew us. We didn't have loyal customers at that time. Having DoorDash was a medium that gave us a presence. It made a base for us. When we were no one, it helped us to become someone.
Well, I feel like for Charles and Camilla, really the Harry stuff has overshadowed that narrative. And I feel like I haven't even really thought about Camilla except in the context of Harry and listening to his book and his relationship with her from his perspective. Right. But yeah, this is kind of them coming to Canada to read the throne speech is kind of the first time that I think a lot of people are putting their minds to this. And I want to talk about the throne speech itself, because typically what you would see is the government, the political staff writing the speech about the priorities of the government. That would then go to the governor general. The governor general would probably read the speech almost word for word. When it comes to the king, this is probably a different situation, I would assume, that his staff will want to look at what the government wants to say. How much of a role do you think Buckingham Palace will play in what is actually said on Monday in the Senate?
They will have a say. They won't change much of the direction of what the prime minister would like it to say, to be. They will add their own personal comments and or moments in it. But would they start to rewrite a speech that was coming from the Prime Minister of Canada? No. This will be Mark Carney's speech from the throne.
Will there be a nod to Donald Trump or a message to him in that
I don't know if they would even mention his name. So I don't know. Of course, there'll be probably some reference to it. I think if you look at the things that the Prime Minister outlined yesterday from his cabinet retreat,
yes,
kind of what his priorities are, you both know this as well as I do. You both had this kind of experience. So, I think you'll see some of that. And if there's anything he'll care a lot about, the king, is sovereignty, national identity, Indigenous, engagement with, diverse communities, all that kind of thing will be what would be of importance to him, and probably speak a little bit to, I'm sure he'll mention his mother, that kind of thing, right? Yeah. So he'll try to draw on the emotional strings of what actually matters to a lot of people here in this country.
Let's talk for a moment about kind of the pomp and circumstance around this. See how I did that? will there be receptions, a function? Will there be something formal that occurs outside of the throne speech?
What's he doing, and how do we get an invite?
Sadly, Rachel, I don't think that's possible.
Oh, no.
I think most of the pomp and pageantry will be on Tuesday when they ride in Canada's Landau, and the horses and the regiments that'll be involved.
Oh.
That's what matters to them more than anything. The horses as well as the regiments, because they tend to know the names of all of them, and some of them they may even be ones that we've been gifted back and forth. So you'll see it in that. The Royal Canadian Dragoon are, the king is the colonel-in-chief for that. So they're meeting him, I believe, at the airport. So there'll be some of them marching when they come. And that'll be pomp and pageantry in itself, especially for Canada. We haven't seen that in a while. And, we have all these royal things in storage that we don't get to use here. Well, yeah.
Wow.
What do we have?
There are other carriages. There are things, right, that are used only for when members of the royal family come here. So you'll see that, I'm sure. I don't know what Ottawa looks like yet. I'm assuming that there's flags and things starting to, come up along the streets. And the other, what kind of crowds will we see? Don't know. But just having them there, it depends as well what robes they decide to wear when they step out.
How do they decide?
Do you expect big crowds tomorrow? Sorry, we're.
I know. Tell us everything.
Not if it's.
Sorry, not tomorrow. Next week.
As long as it's not raining. I think there probably will be a decent crowd. Real curiosity at seeing them. This is his first time here as monarch, right? He's been here 20 times before, mostly as the Prince of Wales. So, it's a difference. And I think it depends on how people feel about the country and things moving forward, where they are politically, where they are in their lives. And does this matter to them?
It's such an interesting thing to think about because of the number of people that want to see the monarchy dissolved or taken away from Canada. And yet this idea that we are trying to prove our sovereignty and from the United States, and whether or not some of those people see the king as like our protector, even though they might not like the bill that comes along with him. I think it's a really fascinating moment in time for him to come. And obviously that was a calculation on the part of Prime Minister Carney, of course.
For both of them, 100%. This is the best time for him to be coming to Canada with everything that's going on. When we are trying to figure out, we are not becoming the 51st state, right? Canada is not for sale. It's that kind of thing. And that is the message for both of them. And I think that means a lot to Canadians, especially those that have lost their jobs in the last couple of weeks with some of the tariff issues that are going on. And, even, for myself, I do a lot of volunteer work with globally with the National Democratic Institute, and all those organizations have been shut down.
Wow. That's
because
crazy.
of Trump. So there's a lot of people that have, there's lots of reasons why we care. And it does impact us here because there's a lot of Canadians that volunteer for this kind of work, mostly political people, which is interesting. But places like, Yemen and Kosovo, those cutbacks are serious denials to them for their freedom and for their health.
It's interesting. The speech from the throne does so many things. It does lay out the priorities. It is an opportunity to make headlines domestically and internationally. It sends signals. And whether or not the president of the United States is called out directly or indirectly, everybody anticipates that there will be a strong message of sovereignty within this throne speech. Do you think that the president will respond to the messages?
Of course he will.
Oh my God.
I can't wait for the tweet. I mean.
Oh, I know.
I assume, but the thing that the palace they do stuff usually with some sense of, courtesy, and they try to do it properly.
Yes.
They don't try to start a war. So I'm sure whatever he says, he will, he will say it in a way that Trump will get the message, but it won't be, it won't be mean. But it should help Canadians understand that, we're together in this fight.
Have they met King Charles and Donald Trump? They have.
Yes, remember he went to the palace a couple of years ago with the Queen?
Oh, yes.
When he walked in front of her and,
Yeah. Oh, my God. All the protocol went out the window.
Yeah.
Holy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Can you give us basically a dive into what those 30 hours will look like, from like a protocol, how the staff are planning it? Like, he'll get off the plane. He will take the carriage to Parliament Hill. No,
that'll be motorcade.
You tell
me. Carriage is next day when they go to the throne speech from Government House.
Okay, so he's coming on Sunday.
Monday. He's coming on Monday. They're flying in. They land around 1 or 1:30. And then they're met by the Honor Guard and the Prime Minister and the Governor General. So, and then they will get in the car and they're going to, I believe, Lansdowne Park, where they're going to meet and greet, organize some communities and organizations. Every royal tour has a theme. So this one is about connecting with Canadians at every level. So, and they always do that. And then they try to stay within that. I mean, it's a lot harder now. It was easier 50 years ago when there was no TV or 24-hour news cycles. Right. But they're doing that. And then I think he's going to some little minor hockey game where he's going to. Yeah.
He's here for 30 hours and he's going to a hockey game?
No, just an outside street one, I believe. Just a
street one.
I love it.
And he'll throw down, he's throwing the puck. Then they go back to Government House, or they go to Government House, and they will, they'll be doing the usual tree planting ceremony.
Tree planting.
At Government House. If you go there, you can see the one that Princess Diana planted.
Really?
30 years ago. Then they'll probably have an audience with Governor General, with the Prime Minister, and then I think there's just a small reception for ambassadors and privy councillors, like that kind of thing. I thought there was going to be a state dinner, but apparently not.
Oh.
Why do you think they're not doing a state dinner? Do you have any sense of that?
Maybe it's a timing thing, too tight. Maybe they are older.
They're tired.
So, yeah, I'm pretty sure there's no state dinner. I thought there was. So unless I'm wrong about that, I'll double check. But and retire then for the evening. So I get up.
And do they stay in a hotel?
No, they're at Government House.
At Government House.
Yeah, they always stay there. They usually stay, if there's a Governor General in a Commonwealth, they will stay within the confines of whatever those homes or castles or palaces look like. That's where they will stay. So, yeah.
Okay, so he's not getting like Bonvoy points every time he goes somewhere. Okay, so then he wakes up the next morning and he goes into the, what are you calling it?
Oh, the horses? Yeah,
the Landau.
And they will ride from Government House to Parliament Hill. So they must be leaving shortly after 10:30, because I believe the speech is at 11, is my understanding. So they usually are. Yeah, so they'll go and they'll do that. And there's dignitaries coming, apparently. Former prime ministers and others will be in the gallery. So I'm sure they'll pick up on, not them, but the news media will probably, maybe Amanda's covering it, I don't know, but, and you, Rachel, so we'll see who all's there. And then they do go to, what did I read? They do go to they're going to lay a wreath at the tomb of the unknown soldier after.
Okay.
So,
it's fascinating.
Yeah. And then they get back on the plane.
More or less. Yeah, they kind of head home. I think that's about it. Yeah, that kind of stuff.
So what are you, as you look toward this big occasion, what are you looking for? Is there anything that, like, if you're listening to this podcast and you're really into this, and you want to watch, like, what should we be looking for?
I think anything that is said that makes the country feel together, to come together as one.
Yeah.
If we can find that real strengthening of national unity or identity, and look, I know there's Quebec, there's Alberta, there's lots going on, but on one issue sometimes is there a place that can come together? And I'm sure the King Charles is trying to figure out if his monarchy stays strong and can move forward. Does Prince William become a good king at some point? Or what does that look like as well? How does that change? So, and I think you'll see a lot of smiling people. I'm sure, I think they'll just sort of get a kick out of all of it too, watching it on TV. And it reminds us, frankly, of who we are. Because when the Queen died, thankfully, she actually died in Scotland. And it gave us a 10-day history lesson about Canada and the United Kingdom and the Commonwealth, because of all the pomp and pageantry that took place, getting her from Scotland back to the UK, and the stories that were able to be told, and the historic relevance of what she did and how she did it and what it means to us and this country. So that was a moment that was, she couldn't have planned it better. She actually wanted to die in Scotland, which was her favorite place to be. So that turned out to work really well in that sense. But there will still be the haters and the naysayers. So it's where do you find a medium or a line that we can actually find all some sense of belonging together as a country.
And then there will be the gossipers like me. And I want to end on this question. Prince Harry, living in California, do we think that there will be a secret meeting in North America between him and his father while he's here? No. Okay. Wishful thinking.
Yeah.
I wish.
That could be a long time coming. Who knows? But it's pretty broken.
Yes. As I read in his book, which was the longest book I have ever read. For those who have read it, it's so long. I actually listened to the audiobook. It was like 19 hours of my life that I'll never get back. But I got through it.
And why?
Yeah, why?
Why? If you're going to write a book, tell us what it was like to be royal and grow up in that environment. But I don't want to hear the stories about who fought with who in the household.
I do, but
yes, but not. It was. He didn't need to do it then. That wasn't the right book.
That's right. Oh, now everybody's going to go read that book. Good. Okay. Commit 20 hours of your life like I did. Anyways, we are going to leave it there. Bonnie, we can't thank you enough for joining us. And we would love to have you back with the next royal visit or scandal. Or I said to Bonnie earlier, it's amazing how many times we've asked her to come on the pod because the royals play into politics in Canada so much. I had no idea. So we are thrilled that you were finally able to join us, and enjoy watching the royal visit next week. I hope you'll get to partake a little bit.
Yeah, I'm going. Yeah, I hope so.
Are you going?
I'm going to Ottawa. Yes.
Well, give Charles a hug for me. I don't think he's a hugging kind of guy. All
Just
right.
Remember, if you get invited to a royal dinner party, hope that Camilla is your seatmate. In terms of humor, fun, laughter, gossip. Absolutely.
All right. Noted. Thank you. We'll leave it there, and we will be back next week as Parliament resumes with a very exciting episode. So join us then.
Thank you for listening. New episodes air every Friday.
Subscribe on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. Follow us on Instagram and find us at beyondaballot.com.